across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good evening and welcome to the Political Asylum right here on Talk. I am your host, Kevin O'Sullivan, and I'll be with you for 3 thrilling hours of news, views and topical debate. Get stuck in, get on the phone and get on the show. Call me on 03444991000 or you can WhatsApp voice note me on the same number and I promise to play your message out. I can't say fairer than that. It is Friday, June the 13th, not the 30th. It is I'll start that again. It is Friday, June the 13th. Here's what's coming up. So, as I said, Friday the 13th. Unlucky for some, and certainly unlucky for Labour's Chief Secretary to the Treasury, Darren Jones, who is pathetically backtracking today after telling a barefaced lie to millions of viewers on BBC Question Time last night. Incredibly, the fibbing MP declared that the majority of the small boat migrants coming across the channel are children, babies and women. That's what he said. The majority of people in these boats are children, babies and women. In fact, as everybody knows, the vast majority of them are young military-age men. Then, fueling suspicions that the BBC is little more than the broadcasting arm of the Labour Party, the state broadcaster outrageously edited out Mr. Jones's blatant untruth when they posted it on Twitter or X or whatever it's called this week. Are we being gaslighted on an epic scale? 03444991000. We can't have these government politicians, these cabinet ministers staring us in the face. They just keep lying. We can't have them lying. You can't run a country like this. This is outrageous. It really is. 03444991000. Plus, Rachel Reeves's asylum seeker hotel shambles. Colonel Richard Kemp live from Tel Aviv as Israel and Iran go to war. The latest on the Ballymena riots. The Muslim rape gang fiends finally convicted 2 decades after subjecting 2 vulnerable white teenage girls to 5 years of sexual hell. And a new damning review directly linking illegal migration with the exploitation of British girls. That's a Sun exclusive that will be in the paper tomorrow. And author and social commentator Brendan O'Neill's take on the absolute state of the nation. That's at 8 o'clock. All that and so much more. So don't go anywhere. Stick with me right here, right now on Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. Let's spend Friday night together. Now, for the evening, for the next couple of hours, I'm thrilled to be joined by political commentator Chloe Dobbs. Hi, Chloe.
Hi, Kevin.
Right, well, we've got a lot to do. In a little while, we will be talking about Rachel Reeves's hotel shambles, the asylum, so her pledge. She said, well, I'll have it all cleared out by the end of this Parliament. So that's 4 years. Not exactly a sort of a dramatic ambition, is it? They should do it rather quicker than that, if you ask me, but 4 years. Then we've asked Rachel, we've asked James Murray, her sidekick. So what are you going to do with the asylum seekers when you kick them out of the hotel? They don't know. Well, you know, I wouldn't really think of that. Rachel Reeves, will play you this later, when she was asked on Times Radio, where are you going to put these? By the way, at the moment we've got about 40,000 asylum seekers in about 200 hotels all over the country. So when she was asked on Times Radio, where are you going to put these asylum seekers when you kick them out? She basically said, well, that's not my job. That's Yvette Cooper's job. You know, that's for the Home Office. It's not my job to find them accommodation. It is well known that Ms Reeves and Ms Cooper do not get on. So that war continues apace. I'm sure Yvette Cooper was thrilled that basically, in effect, the Chancellor of the Exchequer said, I'm going to get all the migrants, all the asylum seekers out of the hotels. I don't know where we're going to put them, but Yvette Cooper can deal with that. It's just an absolute shambles. We'll talk about that in a little while. We need to go over to Tel Aviv to talk to Colonel Richard Kemp about the escalating war, basically, out there in the Middle East after that incredible strike by Israel last night. It's confidently predicted there will be more strikes tonight, and Iran has said that the bomb attack last night is a say it properly, Clevin. Declaration of war. What is the matter with me tonight? Right, so we'll talk to Richard Kemp in Tel Aviv about the situation there, and finally we'll talk about the grooming gang scandal. Incredibly, a gang of 7 Muslim rapists have been convicted of sexually exploiting 2 vulnerable teenage girls throughout 5 years of hell between 2001 and 2006. Why did it take 20 years to bring them to justice? But we're hearing also that The Sun will tomorrow be revealing a sensational review which directly links the exploitation of British girls to illegal migration. So that sounds like a bombshell exclusive. We'll talk about that later. So all that in the first hour. And by the way, at 8 o'clock we'll be joined by social commentator, author and writer Brendan O'Neill to get his take on what I'm calling not the state of the nation, the absolute state of the nation. Lots to talk about there. But first up, Chloe, we're going to talk about Darren Jones. We're going to play you some video. Right, this is Darren Jones speaking last night on Question Time.
And when you see that the majority of the people in these boats are children, babies and women who have been...
No, they're not.
No, you have got to take... No, look, I get this is...
North of 90% of them are adult men.
Let me be... No.
Hang on, you're saying that's not true?
No, look, this is why it's controversial.
It's not true. Is it true or
I'm
not?
saying it's not true. Now, and I'm saying that this is controversial for a reason, and it's not... You're told not to challenge the audience on Question Time, but I'm going to, so let me tell you this story. When there are babies and children put into that position by human trafficking gangs who are coming across in the...
blah, blah, blah. That, you know, it's pulling on the emotion strings and all that. They play the violins. But he said there, you just heard that the majority of small boat migrants coming across the channel illegally, asylum seekers, are children, babies and women. That is a lie. That is just a lie. He's been making pathetic excuses today, but that's a lie. Now, BBC always tweets out loads and loads of clips of Question Time. Here's the BBC Question Time tweet of that moment when Darren Jones, the Chief Secretary to the Treasury, declared that the majority of migrants coming across the channel are children, babies and women. Here is the BBC's version.
When there are babies and children put into that position by human trafficking gangs who are coming across in the channel with skin burns from the oil from those boats mixing with the salt seawater, I would ask any...
Yeah. In other words, the BBC cut out his lie. They edited his lie out. So the BBC, confirming what many of us have always suspected, is not little more than the broadcasting arm of the Labour Party. Now, today, Darren Jones has been squirming away. We put in calls to number 10 Downing Street, saying, does the Prime Minister support Darren Jones, the Chief Secretary to the Treasury? He's a Cabinet Minister. Does the Prime Minister support Cabinet Minister Darren Jones's statement on Question Time last night that the majority of migrants coming across the channel are children, babies and women? Of course, guess what? No answer. We put a call into Darren Jones and his office. No answer, but finally, only recently, about an hour ago, his office said Darren's put a clarification out on Twitter. I will read that to you in a little while. It's a mealy excuse that doesn't really cover it at all. So here we are. We've got it here. Yeah. Darren Jones tweeted this. Yeah, but I'll admit I was pressurising him all day. Why did you lie? Why did you lie? And I said to him, if you know, either when you said that, Darren, this is all on Twitter. You can look it up. My timeline is at TVKev, TVKEV. Have a look it up. I said, you know, either that is a deliberate lie, Darren, or as a cabinet minister, you are alarmingly ill-informed. Now it turns out that, of course, it's the former. It's a lie. We can't have this. He's a government minister. He's a cabinet minister on television, on BBC, being watched by millions of people, telling a lie, an obvious, demonstrable lie. So here's what he responded. This is his pathetic, grovelling excuse. Of course, the overall majority of people arriving illegally on small boats are men. That's not what you said. You didn't say that. But not north of 90%, as Reform claimed. Well, that's beside the point. In fact, in terms of the percentage of, you know, military-age young men between the age of sort of 16 and 34 that come across, it always varies. I remember a couple of years ago, the official percentage was 84%. Only recently, I've got the statistics here somewhere, I'll read them to you in a minute. Official statistics suggested 75%. And a lot of people say it is 90%. A lot of people say it's more than 90%, not as the Yusuf said, north of 90%. So don't, you know, he's trying to move the goalposts there. It's not about what Zia said, it's about what you said, Jones. He goes on to say, on BBC Question Time, I shared a story from my visit to the Border Security Command. Sorry, every time I hear the words Border Security Command, I burst out laughing. That's at about 300 million quid's worth of taxpayers' money to catch no gangs whatsoever. Smash the gangs, the Border Security Command. They haven't, in 11 months, they've caught the square root of sod all. They're useless, but we keep giving them more money. Anyway, sorry, I digress. Right, let's start that again. On BBC Question Time, I shared a story from my visit to the Border Security Command about a dinghy that arrived mostly carrying women, children and babies who had suffered horrific burns. I'm happy to clarify this, given how this is being misrepresented. No, mate, you misrepresented it. Don't blame us. You told a damn lie. Stop trying to wriggle out of it. So, misrepresented. Come on, what are you, 14 years old? This is ridiculous. Labour committed new funding this week to secure our borders. Yeah, well, we just dismissed that as a joke. While Reform have voted against giving our police powers needed to smash the gangs fuelling this vile trade. Chloe, your thoughts?
What a pathetic excuse. As you quite rightly said, Kevin, this has shown, regardless of what silly statement he puts out, that he is either a blatant liar and he knows that he's lying and he will do it to push a narrative even if he knows the facts are false, or he's, I think you use slightly more polite terms, but I would say a thick idiot that's completely out of touch with what is going on and who is arriving in this country. And the BBC, let's have a go at them as well, not just Darren Jones.
Don't worry.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm going to.
The BBC,
I have done.
The BBC, I mean, I will. The BBC, if they wanted to get as many views and clicks as they, which is what they should want to do on Twitter, right? They would have picked the most contentious part, but they cut out the contentious part to save their mate Darren Jones because they wouldn't want to possibly upset the lefties. I think that it is very clear what the BBC were doing there. If they were completely impartial and they went for the part that was just controversial and would get the most clicks, they would have put the first part in and not have cut it out. And Zia, when he responded to Darren Jones, he quite rightly said, I'm not sure, BBC, if your fact checkers are working tonight, but they always seem to be working when I speak.
Well, let's read the BBC statement on this. The clip is an accurate portrayal of the conversation. No, it isn't.
What?
It isn't.
What planet are they on?
It is not an accurate portrayal of the conversation because it excludes the lie that Darren Jones told about the majority of the migrants being children, babies and women. They cut that out. So it is not an accurate portrayal, but I'll read the rest of it anyway. The clip is an accurate portrayal of the conversation, and the points by both panellists, including Zia Yusuf's rebuttal, are included at reasonable length. So the BBC are lying. That's a lie. That is not an accurate representation of the conversation. And Darren Jones is lying, and he's a cabinet minister. What on earth is going on?
Yeah, and the thing is, Zia Yusuf's rebuttal was a response to the first point he made. Zia Yusuf made that comment with that stat of around 90% because Darren Jones had just claimed, by saying the majority are women and children, he has claimed that less than 50% are military-age males. Essentially, that's what he said, and Zia has responded to that. And, you know, typical Labour, just try and point the finger at someone else to excuse yourself. Yeah, Zia Yusuf may have been slightly off the mark with his figure of 90%, but he was a heck of a lot closer to the mark than Darren Jones. We know that for sure.
Well, he's not necessarily off the mark. That's the point. I mean, estimates vary.
Yeah, but he's certainly a lot closer than Darren Jones, right? Who's claiming it's less than 50% men.
But look. The statistics from the Migration Observatory for the year to March the 31st last year do show that 75% of those arriving in Britain in small boats were adult men. So that's an official figure, 75%. I do believe that not so long ago the Home Office released figures that suggested something similar. But estimates vary. But the point is, as I say, about 2-3 years ago, I remember the estimate. It was 84%. So some people say it's more than 90%, 75%. But to say, as you say, Chloe, that the majority are children, babies, and women. That's you can't say, oh well, you know, it's close enough. No. The point is, whether it's 75%, 84%, or 90%, this is the picture. The vast majority of these migrants coming across the channel in illegal small boats are young men of military age, or I should say young men of working age, between the age of sort of 16, 18 and 34, so they can all get jobs. They are economic migrants. And what Darren doesn't want us to think is that. He doesn't want us to think that the Labour government is hopeless in stopping these people who are just blatantly coming across the channel looking for work. That's the only reason they're coming. It's nothing to do with escaping war or torture. So Darren Jones lied to the people last night, and I would like to hear from you. What do you think about that? What do you think about the BBC lying as well? I mean, what kind of state? They're always going, all these people, oh, it's misinformation, it's the scourge of today, lies, when the truth is dying, and that's a terrible effect on democracy. Yeah, especially when the liars are in the government. We're going to be talking about that later. So stay tuned, and we'll pick up on more nonsense from this government after these messages.
they're in this sort of death spiral by which they put up taxes, which reduces growth, which means that they've got to borrow more money, which means that the amount of interest they're going to pay on the borrowing goes up, which means they're going to raise taxes, and it just goes round and round and round in a circle. The economic numbers for April alone, the economy contracted by 0.3% in 1 month, and also we've seen those job numbers, you know, really tanking with, I think, unemployment amongst young people in my constituency up a sixth just since the general election alone.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This.
All right, let's talk about more what I would suggest are government lies. I mean, frankly, Rachel Reeves's, old Rachel from Accounts, her spending review statement in Parliament the other day, many people have said that was just a pack of lies. You know, we've fixed the foundations of the economy, and the economy is in such great shapes. I'm going to be able to splash the cash with tremendous largesse. In fact, she's borrowed up to the hilt to pay for all these measures, many of which just won't happen. But this idea, backed up by Starmer said exactly, or tweeted the same, fix the foundations of the economy and now we're ready to bargain. You know, they haven't fixed the foundations of the economy, have they? The economy is in a dreadful state, we know that, and any money she's got to spend isn't because they filled the £22 billion financial black hole, which never existed anyway. It's because she's borrowed more and more money. She's borrowed so much money, we're teetering on the edge, we really are. At the centre of this bizarre pack of lies, the spending review, was her pledge that by the end of this Parliament, by 2029, all the asylum seekers will be cleared out of the hotels, because that's costing us £4.7 billion a year. I think it's about 40,000 asylum seekers in about 200 hotels all over the country, and we know all about that. Now, you know, okay, great, get them out. Why is it going to take 4 years? That's not good enough. And secondly, 4 years, you know, it's not exactly a sort of a dramatic announcement, is it? You know, it's a bit like saying, I'm going to get this done by next century. Big deal. But it begged the question, what are you going to do with these asylum seekers when you get them out? James Murray, one of Rachel Reeves's sidekicks at the Treasury, was asked 9 times by Jeremy Kyle the other day on Talk Drive Time, a couple of days ago, where are they going to go? He couldn't answer. Rachel Reeves still can't answer. She can't answer. But it seems to me that what she says, her attitude, she said, well, it's not my job, you know, to decide where to put them. I don't know. That's the Home Office's job. Here she is on Times Radio talking to Stig Abel yesterday.
But you're not going to deport all of them. You're not going to accept all the rest of them. There's going to be some people still in the system. You can't get through.
Cheaper accommodation, and it's up to the Home Office will set out those details.
So do you know where you're going to put them if you're not going to put them in hotels? I'm just interested. Do you know?
Well, I'm not going to be providing accommodation. That's up for the Home Office to do. But the wasteful spending at the moment on the most expensive form of accommodation is a terrible use of taxpayers' money, and that's why we're going to put it to an end.
So you heard her there going, can't answer.
She's got no idea where they're going to go. Nobody in the cabinet knows where they're going to go. Because, of course, the truth is they won't get them out of the hotels. It's just another announcement. But if they do, Rachel just basically, by the way, it's well known Rachel Reeves and Yvette Cooper aren't exactly the best of friends. So she's basically said, well, don't ask me, ask Yvette. That was the essence of what she said there. Yvette Cooper would have been furious about that. But here's what will happen to them, Chloe. They'll go into social housing. They'll go into council houses. I don't think they'll get them all out, but those that they do will go into social housing, council housing, and they will leap to the front of the queue, leaping over British citizens who've been waiting for years. Others will be put into funded private rental accommodation, the government building new houses. So that's where they're going to go. But mainly they're going to go into council houses and social houses above British citizens. So in other words, they don't have any answer about what they're going to do with these asylum seekers. And by the way, the other thing we need to talk about, no mention whatsoever of how they're going to stop the boats or stop the migrants. When they say 2029 asylum seekers will get that, proves that they see no end to this, and in 2029 there'll still be migrants all over the shop. It's a mess, isn't it?
There absolutely will be, and I wouldn't be surprised if over the next few years the number of migrants crossing each year goes up and up and up. I think we're already on track for around 50,000 to cross the channel this year. I mean, we'll see what happens with the weather and whatnot, but I highly doubt their approach to smashing the gangs is going to bring the numbers down anytime soon, because there hasn't really been any smashing of the gangs happening whatsoever. It's very clear that their approach to this is to just move them out of hotels and into social housing, private rented accommodation, etc. And also, apparently, the government is buying hotels rather than renting them, is buying them, and they're basically just going to rename them and say this is technically not a hotel, this is just a big house, so that they can hit their pledge. But they may be able to say, oh look, we've hit our pledge, we've ended the use of asylum hotels. But I think that the solution that they've got is going to make people even more furious. As you say, they're going to be jumping the queue ahead of Brits who have, I can't remember the exact figures, but when I looked up the waiting times, average waiting times for a council house, it's insane. Yeah. It's crazy, and people in this country are furious, and have been over the past few years, that they are at the back of the queue in this country, ahead of foreigners, especially foreigners who have arrived illegally. That is deeply, deeply morally wrong. And people, also young people, Labour normally get the vote of young people, but I'm already seeing young people putting up TikToks that are going viral of the first few people who have found out they're being evicted from their houses because their landlords have decided to take the nice cushy deal that they've been offered for 5 years guaranteed rent and bills all paid for to house asylum seekers. And it's probably the houses that young people would typically live in where there are like lots of rooms to rent out, because it's, you do more shared living when you're younger, that people are going to be kicked out of. That's going to infuriate people. Young people just feel like they've got no hope because they can't get on the housing ladder.
Well, all people,
they go to a million different viewings to try and rent a place, and they just get turned away from all of them. This is going to really exacerbate that.
Yes, indeed. But it's not just young people. I mean, middle-aged people are waiting for that count. People in their 30s and 40s are desperately waiting for social houses, or indeed the kind of private rental property that the government sort of presides over. All those millions of houses that Angela Rayner's not building. But when you talk about, you're right. There's a report out today that the government is quietly, buying hotels now, as you say, and they're going to call them normal migrant accommodation centres. So in other words, their solution, their way of solving the migrant crisis will be wordplay. We won't call it Asylum Seekers Hotel, we'll call it something else. We'll buy them and we'll call it something else. So that's how they're going to solve the crisis, by giving it a new name, giving the accommodation centres a new name, and pretending we've cleared the hotels because we don't call them hotels anymore. Now, I should stress the Home Office has denied this story, so you absolutely know it's true. Let me know what you think about that, folks, because this pledge the other day, it's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. And also, just quickly, we should talk about the other pledge she made, Chloe. That is that she's going to give £80 million to the Border Security Command. Last year they gave them £175 million for high-tech surveillance equipment, cutting edge, the very latest in technology, to find the gangs and smash them. Now they're giving them another £280 million with the same idea, cutting edge equipment, surveillance equipment, and they've caught no gangs whatsoever so far, and they're not going to. The gangs are too clever for them, and catching the gangs won't stop the trade. It is absolutely ridiculous.
You know where this 280 million will be spent. That will be spent on improving the taxi service that is currently available to pick you up from the centre line of the Channel and take you to the White Cliffs of Dover. That's what it will be used for. Unless they stop them from leaving those French beaches in the first place, giving 280 million to the border force on our side, or border farce as we call it, it's not going to do anything. They'll just spend more money on putting these border force boats out that simply act as a taxi service. It's not like those border force boats are turning the boats around and sending them back to France. I mean, they've told us that the French are now going to have the power to waddle into the water a little bit.
That's not true, though. It's not true. The Sun yesterday was on the beach in just east of Calais, where the gendarmes watching the migrants all wade out to sea, get into the dinghies, and when the Sun reporter Ed Southgate asked them, we've got a film of it. They said, "C'est difficile, very difficult. We're not allowed to go into the sea." So it isn't true that the French are going into the sea. They're still saying they won't do it. And I think they're just talking about. Well, yeah, but we've given them £800 million, and only now are we finding out that they won't get their feet wet. It's absolutely ridiculous. Let's go to break, and I'm looking at pictures of Tel Aviv, in Israel, of course, where Iran has been attempting to bomb that beautiful city. And our next guest is in Tel Aviv. He's Colonel Richard Kemp, ex-British Army commander, of course. And he's right in the thick of it. But we, of course, know that last night Israel launched this extraordinary attack on Iran, and Iran said this is a declaration of war and we're going to attack you back. Now it looks as if they are trying that, but of course Israel have these amazing Iron Dome protection systems, so it doesn't look like they're hitting everything, but the pictures are dramatic. So anyway, let's go to break. When we come back, we'll talk to Colonel Richard Kemp. Stick around.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. We need to talk about war in the Middle East. A lot of people saying it's a prelude to world war. Israel launched Operation Rising Lion last night, a deadly strike on Iran's nuclear sites, and with astonishing precision, it killed Iran's nuclear scientists and its military leaders. You saw apartment blocks where the missiles straight through a single apartment blown out in a tower block. So with great precision, apparently they've taken out the scientists who could have helped them develop a nuclear bomb, which Netanyahu and the Israelis said they were perilously close to doing. Now, America says it knows nothing about it. Donald Trump said, we didn't know about this. Well, to be honest with you, I love old Donald, but that is a preposterous thing to say. There is no way in the world that Israel would launch an attack like this on Iran without telling America, and indeed the American military bases that are all around that area, not far from Iran, were mysteriously cleared out yesterday. All the personnel moved out. So I think we can take the idea that America didn't know about this with a pinch of salt. America says it's foursquare behind Israel, although it's distancing itself from this attack. Britain, of course, took no part in it, would not help Israel, as our antipathy towards Netanyahu and Israel gets worse and worse and worse. Now, we were going to go to Colonel Richard Kemp, who we think may have been shifted to a bomb shelter because he's in Tel Aviv, and Tel Aviv is under attack right now, we think by Iranian drones. We've seen pictures of the city shrouded in smoke. One would assume that was the Iron Dome stopping the bombs dropping. But earlier today, Richard did post this video on social media.
I'm Richard Kemp, here in Israel. As I speak, over 100 Iranian drones are heading towards us, Iran's first response to Israel's preemptive strikes that are going on now. This tiny country is single-handedly taking on the greatest terror state in the world today, and has already done immense damage to its offensive capabilities. Iran has been attacking and killing Israelis through its terror proxies for years. It is now, or was, on the verge of producing nuclear bombs that could have wiped out millions of people at a stroke. Well, that's pretty much over now, or will be soon, thanks to Israel's courageous soldiers and political leaders.
Now, Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, also made an announcement about this. So here he is.
Moments ago, Israel launched Operation Rising Lion, a targeted military operation to roll back the Iranian threat to Israel's very survival. This operation will continue for as many days as it takes to remove this threat. For decades, the tyrants of Tehran have brazenly, openly called for Israel's destruction. They've backed up their genocidal rhetoric with a program to develop nuclear weapons. In recent years, Iran has produced enough highly enriched uranium for 9 atom bombs. 9. In recent months, Iran has taken steps that it has never taken before, steps to weaponize this enriched uranium. And if not stopped, Iran could produce a nuclear weapon in a very short time. It could be a year, it could be within a few months, less than a year. This is a clear and present danger to Israel's very survival.
Meanwhile, over here in London, Tutir Kier called for a de-escalation, and I quote, "a time for restraint, calm and a return to diplomacy." Good luck with that. Well, Chloe, it's really kicking off now. As we speak, we're hearing that Israel is under attack from Iran. We're looking at pictures, as I keep saying, of Tel Aviv, where Colonel Richard Kemp is, and I think people are being moved to bomb shelters, probably including Richard. So there's this plume of smoke hanging over the stunning cities, Tel Aviv, amazing skyscrapers, but there's this plume of smoke hanging over it, and no doubt that Iron Dome is in place, stopping the bombs coming down, but Iran yesterday said, or this morning said, this was a declaration of war, and let's face it, this looks like Israel and Iran are now at war.
Yeah, and I think that Tuti Akia was completely off the mark to say, oh, everyone just calm down and talk it out. When I heard this news that Israel had finally gone for Iran, I was overjoyed, and so are many Iranians. You've got plenty of the wokies in the West who hate the West, who go on these pro-Palestine protests being like, oh, evil Israel, they just want to bomb everywhere and just kill everyone for the fun of it. But the people who are actually from Iran, who have had their country, which used to be a, beautiful, vibrant culture. The women used to be able to wear, beautiful, colourful clothes. They've been living under this horrible...
When it was Persia.
Under this horrible terror for what, the past 47 years. They are desperate. And to see that we are on the brink of that horrible republic being toppled is absolutely fantastic news. And I think well done, Israel, for having the courage to do this. And these are the guys, when we talk about the war in Gaza all of the time, but a lot of people do not recognise that Iran are the people who are the ones funding Hamas, Hezbollah, all of these horrible, evil Islamist groups, and ultimately you have to take out Iran to end this horrible problem of these evil regimes like Hamas and Hezbollah.
Yeah, and we're looking at footage now, and it looks as if the Iranians have struck a civilian building in Tel Aviv. That is yet to be confirmed, but we can see on the newsreels that definitely Tel Aviv is under attack. You can see the skies full of missiles, drones, no doubt. But as we know, the Israeli cities are protected by this Iron Dome, which is an amazing piece of technology. But that doesn't mean to say it's completely 100% secure. So it is really kicking off there. And the question is, so obviously Britain has completely distanced itself from this. Donald Trump acting like he didn't know, but there's no way he didn't know. One wonders, if America will get sucked into this. A lot of people saying this is it. We've just reached World War III.
I wouldn't call it World War III.
Well, not yet. Not yet.
I think, as you say, America and Britain are all being very careful to distance themselves just to make sure it doesn't end up being World War III.
Britain is distancing itself more than America.
Yeah, absolutely.
America is standing four square behind Israel.
America is clearly behind them.
We are not.
They're publicly saying what they need to do to make sure that this doesn't become.
And we've got to remember.
I don't think we're going to end up in World War III, but this is clearly an escalation. But I don't. As I said, I don't think this is a bad thing that Israel has attacked Iran. I think it's a good thing that we're heading in the direction of maybe finally toppling this horrific regime that funds all the terrorists.
Tehran is reporting that at least 78 civilians were killed in that city alone. What they did, apparently using information collected by Mossad, Israel's incredible secret service, the finest in the entire world, they say that it's easy to find things out in Iran, that Iranians are easy to bribe. So they had the addresses of all these military leaders, they had the addresses of the nuclear scientists, and they took out their residences with astonishing precision. Meanwhile, they were bombing nuclear sites, but they were also in Iran, striking using cars full of bombs and things like that. So they were operating within Iran as well. Now, the thing to remember, I hope you're right. I mean, I hope it doesn't escalate into something terrible, but it easily could. And the reason for this is, that Iran is no small fry when it comes to military might. Iran is very militarily powerful. It is very weaponed up. So if Iran starts going full tilt at Israel, and Israel, of course, already is going full tilt at Iran, all hell could break loose.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens. But one thing to bear in mind is that Iran has in the past relied on having a lot of support from the Russians. But now that Russia has, over the past couple of years, been focusing all their money and focus on the war in Ukraine, that has hindered them. But on the other hand, when Trump was president previously, he was cutting off their wealth by, for example, telling China, if you buy a single barrel of oil from Iran, that's it, no trade with you. Whereas then Biden was then happy to do more trade with them and let them make these riches from their oil, which helped fund all their military might. So we'll see what happens. But I do think Israel, they wouldn't have done this if they thought that they were going to be on the losing foot of this.
Oh, well, I think if push came to shove, Israel can beat Iran, but Iran is no slouch. Iran can give them a hell of a fight.
Well, it'd be interesting to see how long this escalation goes on for. I mean, remember when Israel then attacked Hamas after October 7th, some of us thought, oh, this will be a week or two. Same with Ukraine. People thought it would, Putin thought it was only going to be a few days, and both these wars have spanned out into years and years. It would be interesting to see, is this something that goes on for a few days, or is this something that's going to go on for a few years?
Well, Netanyahu said these attacks. So one would assume there'll be more attacks on Iran tonight, because Netanyahu said these strikes will go on for days at least. So the tension is rising there, and as you say about Russia, Putin's only statement was that he's very concerned. So it was quite reticent, quite low-key, really. As you say, Chloe, Putin's got other things on his mind. So this may be one of the factors that caused Netanyahu to say, now is the time to get Iran. A lot of people in the West said, why haven't the West done this? Thank God Israel's finally done it. Time to bring in Iran into line. So we'll keep you posted with that story as it develops. When we come back, we're going to talk about the grooming gangs, or let's call them what they really are, the rape gangs. That next, stay tuned.
They're in this sort of death spiral by which they put up taxes, which reduces growth, which means that they've got to borrow more money, which means that the amount of interest they're going to pay on the borrowing goes up, which means they're going to raise taxes, and it just goes round and round and round in a circle. The economic numbers for April alone, the economy contracted by 0.3% in 1 month, and also we've seen those job numbers, really tanking, with I think unemployment amongst young people in my constituency up a sixth just since the general election alone.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Still with political commentator Chloe Dobbs on a very eventful night. We're going to talk about the grooming gangs in just a second. Incredibly, today, a gang of 7 Muslim rapists were convicted almost 20 years after their offences. They subjected 2 vulnerable teenage girls to 5 years of sexual hell. 20 years. Why is it taking 20 years? Also, The Sun is going to be reporting tomorrow an exclusive story by Noah Hoffman, part of their excellent political team, that a damning review into rape gangs will directly link illegal migration with the exploitation of British girls. The Home Office is expected to publish the long-awaited national audit on group-based child sexual exploitation and abuse next week. So illegal migration is directly linked to the grooming gang scandal, the rape gang scandal. That is quite a story. Now, but we need to sort of go back to Tel Aviv, where it looks like some missiles, bombs, whatever, have penetrated the Iron Dome. I'm looking at, you can see that there, a building on fire, definite destruction there. And I should have said earlier, we hope Colonel Richard Kemp, who was due to join us earlier about 7:30, we got no signal whatsoever. We hope he's okay. We believe that, like many civilians there, he's not an army man anymore, he's been moved to a bomb shelter. So look at that. That is a direct hit, a retaliatory strike by Iran on Tel Aviv. Israel, I think I can say with pretty confidently, will respond, to say the least. Tit for tat bombing strikes, incredible. We'll keep you abreast of that, of course, as the night develops. But very quickly, or as quickly as we can, Chloe, we need to talk about this. So today, a so-called grooming gang, 7 Muslim men of Pakistani origin, usual story, were convicted of sexually exploiting 2 vulnerable teenage girls throughout 5 years of hell between 2001 and 2006. Why has it taken so long to get to court? What we know is these rape gangs are still operating all over the country. We still have this massive problem, and now the Sun is reporting, a great exclusive, that there will be this report that say that this scandal, the rape gangs, are directly linked to illegal migration. That's quite a story.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it. I mean, I'm very interested to see it when we see that come out in full tomorrow, to see exactly what links they have found. I think you get story after story coming up of, you know, scary stories of, I mean, we had someone came across on a boat and just 40 days after arriving raped a woman. We see all sorts of scary stuff, and a lot of people will push back and say, oh, you know, it's just a few very rare cases and the media goes absolutely nuts about it, but actually it's really, really rare that anyone that comes here on a boat does anything wrong. But if the Sun have got proper stats to back that up, that will be very interesting. Just onto that grooming gang case, I think what this really shows is that this grooming gang problem is not something that we should speak about in the past tense, like, oh, it's all done and dealt with. Because I think that's what Labour think. I think that is one of the reasons why they think we do not need a national inquiry into the grooming gangs, because they think, well, you know, it's a thing of the past. It doesn't happen anymore. Those who did it, they've been put in jail, been sorted. No, there are still loads and loads of perpetrators, I think, who are still walking the streets, who have never had to face justice. And the reason for that is because what these men would do is they would threaten girls. You know, if you dare tell anyone or go anywhere near the police about this, we're going to set your house on fire, we're going to kill you, we're going to murder you. They'd turn up at your house and threaten you. We've had people's houses petrol bombed, I think. We've had terrifying stuff. So there are probably so many girls who still to this day are living in silence when they should really have had their cases dealt with and gone to the police. And then in this case, the police said, actually, we did have the information all of those years ago, and we should have acted on the information and done something about these guys, but we didn't. Yeah. We're sorry, they've said.
This is Rochdale again, for God's sake. Rochdale again. The 7 men passed their victim, 2 apparently very vulnerable teenage girls, around for sex, preyed on them in squalid flats and car parks in the town. They groomed the girls from the age of 13, so they're paedophiles as well, and made them their sex slaves by plying them with gifts, including alcohol and drugs. The victims both had deeply troubled home lives, which meant they were easy to prey on. So this, I mean, that's an historical case, but it is still going on all over the country. Everybody knows that. What is also going on is the kind of sort of guilt trip middle class coppers and social workers, local politicians who just don't want to get into this stuff because they feared they would be accused of Islamophobia, because the villains of the story are always Muslim men of Pakistani origin. And when you say the government doesn't think it needs a national inquiry or even local inquiry, it does know that we need one. It just doesn't want one, because the places where this always happened, the areas, the local authorities, they were always Labour run. So guess who was the Director of Public Prosecutions from 2008 until 2013, when the rape gangs were operating in all their horror at a rate of knots, when the worst of it was going on. Not a single prosecution from 2008 to 2013. Who was the Director of Public Prosecutions? He wasn't Sir then, he was Mr. Keir Starmer. That's another reason they don't want any inquiries.
Yeah, Keir Starmer doesn't want to be shown up, and there are Labour councillors and whatnot in all these areas that were run by Labour councillors who don't want to be shown up. They want to save themselves rather than do the morally right thing. Maggie Oliver, who's done absolutely fantastic work in this area with her Maggie Oliver Foundation, she recently did another documentary on this with Channel 4, and Keir Starmer was invited to be interviewed for it, but he refused to do so. He doesn't want to be involved at all and possibly have his failings as Director of Prosecutions at the CPS Chloe, exposed.
Yeah, you've got to remember also that Labour don't want these inquiries, either local or national, because that would tick the Muslim community off, and Keir Starmer wants the Muslim vote. He's going to really need it at the next election. I don't think it will save him anyway, but he does not want to offend Muslims. As simple as that. He's desperate to stay on the right side of the Islamic community, and that's why there are no local. They've cancelled the local inquiries, and certainly no national inquiry. Brendan O'Neill is going to join us next to discuss the absolute state of the nation. Stay tuned for that.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. In half an hour, I'll be taking your calls. 03444991000. I'll also play you a clip from my show, my TV show, What Just Happened. That goes out at 9 o'clock in an hour. You do not want to miss it. It's absolutely sensational. But for the next half an hour, I did want to trail this by saying Brendan O'Neill will join us to talk about the state of the nation. But I think more accurately, he's going to join us to talk about the absolute state of the nation. So a warm welcome to Brendan O'Neill, author, writer, chief political writer at Spiked Online. Welcome, Brendan. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, Kevin. How you doing?
I'm very, very well. Before I want to talk to you about Ballymena in just a little while. But first, can I talk to you about our body politic, our government in particular? They like to say the scourge of democracy is misinformation, untruths. Now, let me, with a view to that, and I think they've got a point there. It's much better if the truth is better than lies. The trouble is, our government keeps telling lies on an unprecedented scale.
Yeah.
Andrew Neil wrote a couple of weeks ago that he's been covering British politics for 55 years. He's never known a government like this that lies and gaslights us. Now, by way of example, I don't know if you made the mistake of watching Question Time last night, but I did. And Darren Jones, no, me neither. But he is the Chief Secretary to the Treasury, a cabinet minister. This is what he said.
And when you see that the majority of the people in these boats are children, babies and women who have been...
No, they're not.
No, you have got to take... No, look, I get this is...
North of 90% of them are adult men.
Let me be... No.
Well, there you go, Brendan. So he actually told millions of viewers that the majority of the migrants coming over in the small boats, the cross-channel migrants, were children, babies and women. As I asked him on Twitter, I said, was that a deliberate lie? Or for a government minister, are you alarmingly ill-informed? It transpired, he's put out an excuse. It's clear it was a deliberate lie. Everybody knows that at least 75% of these migrants are young men of military age. In fact, there's some estimates, as Zia Yusuf referenced, to there being as many as 90% of the migrants are being young men. Certainly, vast majority. There is a cabinet minister on television telling millions of viewers a barefaced lie. We've also got Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves, the spending review the other day. We're so proud to have fixed the foundations of the economy so that we can now start, handing money out with great largesse. This again is an absolute lie. We know the economy is in a serious mess, and the only reason she can give any money to anybody is because she's going to have to borrow more really, really dangerously. So your take on this government and its tendency to just lie. It's extraordinary.
It's Orwellian. You know, the essence of 1984, Orwell's great dystopia, is that the authorities try to make us deny the evidence of our own eyes, try to make us believe things that we can see and hear with our own eyes and ears are not true. And that's exactly what that government minister was doing on Question Time last night. He was trying to make us go mad. He was gaslighting us in the traditional classic sense of that word, where you try to make people think they are insane by telling them things that are clearly not true. We can all see these boats. We see them coming every single day. We know, as you say, that 75% of the people on these boats are young men of fighting age, usually quite fit, healthy young men. They don't look like they're in distress or fleeing war zones that they couldn't survive in if they really wanted to. We all see this. We all know it. We know the truth. We read about it. We talk about it. We have conversations with our friends, with our work colleagues. And then in swoops this government minister to say, oh, no, you're all wrong. You're all blind and deaf to reality. And here I am to unveil the truth to you. It is Orwellian, it is dystopian, and that really goes for all of this government's misinformation. They are gaslighting us every single day.
And who assists them? What I might call the broadcasting arm of the Labour government, the BBC. Now, you just saw Darren Jones lying to us, saying the majority of these migrants are babies, children and women. This is what the BBC posted on Twitter. They put lots of clips from Question Time out every time the show's on. So this is what the BBC... well, I'm going to play you that in just a second. Basically, just to put you in the picture, they cut out the bit where Darren Jones said the majority of these migrants are women, babies and children. They cut that out and just let him carry on with his diatribe, saying, oh, it's so terrible when you see women and children burnt on these crossings. So the BBC... yeah. Gaslighting us as well. Oh, hang on. Oh, it's ready now at last. Last of the great professionals. So here is that clip.
When there are babies and children put into that position by human trafficking gangs who are coming across in the channel with skin burns from the oil from those boats mixing with the salt seawater, I would ask any of you to look at those babies and children and say, go back where you came from.
So you see what they did, Brendan? They took off the bit at the beginning where he said the majority. So the BBC gaslighting us as well.
Oh, absolutely. The BBC aids and abets government misinformation. You know what makes me laugh about the BBC? They have this wing, BBC Verify. You know, they think we're all sitting around waiting for their godlike pronouncements on what's true and what's false. The arrogance, the unbelievable arrogance of the BBC to think that it can sit in judgment on truth itself, when we all know the BBC promotes misinformation as well. We all know that the BBC downplays certain social problems and upplays other problems. We all know that the BBC has an ideological agenda and that it generally reflects the ideological agenda of those kind of upper middle class technocrats who run this country. Everyone knows that. We're not stupid. And so we can see that in that clip that you've played there, where they take out his misinformation and keep in his heartstring pulling, you know, this idea.
Exactly.
Well, yeah, you know, it's so emotionally and politically manipulative, where they're basically saying, how could you heartless monsters, you gammon up and down the country, how could you be so mean to these women and children with burns coming across on boats? It's basically saying, you lot are the scum of the earth because you are not being sympathetic to these women and children, when the reality is that the government is failing us catastrophically by not protecting our borders from the young men who are coming here every single day.
Absolutely. And we contacted the BBC. We were very journalistic today. We put in a call to number 10 Downing Street and said, does the Prime Minister support Darren Jones's statement that the majority of the small boat migrants are women, children and babies? Of course, no answer came the reply. We put in a call to Darren Jones. He put a tweet out about an hour ago, essentially confirming that he lied, you know, weasel words, but, you know, pathetic, grovelling excuse. The BBC said, what they posted, the clip is an accurate portrayal of the conversation and the points made by both panellists. It's not an accurate portrayal. It's the polar opposite of an accurate portrayal. It is a portrayal that seeks to completely misrepresent the conversation.
Yeah, you know, it's insult after insult. They think we are idiots. They think we can't see what they are doing. It's like they think we're children. You know, adults sometimes pull the wool over children's eyes, and sometimes we have to pull the wool over children's eyes. We know what they're doing. We're not children. We're not stupid. We know exactly what the BBC is up to. We know precisely that someone at the BBC HQ knew what they were doing when they clipped that little bit of the thing and they left out his lie and they kept in his emotional blackmail, essentially, is what it was. They know what they're doing. They thought to themselves, we need to get this out there. We need to rub people's faces in it. We need to make ordinary Brits feel bad, and we will do it with this clip. It's so ideologically driven and so emotionally manipulative. It really gets on my nerves.
Yeah, and it's a problem. It's a scourge. As to go back to what Andrew Neil said, in 55 years of political reporting, he's never seen a government that lies like this. We were discussing earlier, you know, this shambles of the asylum seeker hotels, which Rachel Reeves says she's going to clear within 4 years. Not much of an ambition, if you ask me. I mean, can't you do it quicker than that? However, all right, we'll take it. 2029, by the end of this Parliament. To the question, what are you going to do with them? Where are they going to go? Successive members of the Cabinet, including Rachel Reeves, have no answer whatsoever. Rachel Reeves actually told Times Radio yesterday, well, it's not my job to find them places to go. That's the Home Office. It's unbelievable.
It's grotesque. You know, it really is grotesque. They have no idea how angry people are about this issue. And people are angry about this issue not because they are racist dinosaurs or xenophobes, which is the prejudice that swirls through Whitehall when they look at ordinary people. They're angry about this issue because they think it's really important for a sovereign nation to protect its borders. They think in order to be a grown-up, proper nation, you need to have controlled borders, and you need to know who's coming into the country, why they're coming into the country, and whether or not they have the right to be here. That is not racist. That is perfectly normal political behavior of a sovereign free nation. But the truth of the matter is, Kevin, that the underlying root of all of this is not simply that they can't stop the gangs. It's not simply that they can't come to an agreement with France to prevent these boats from setting sail. The truth is that we have a political class that doesn't give a solitary damn about sovereignty. It would trade British sovereignty for peanuts. We've seen that with the way in which it's handed control of Gibraltar's borders over to EU officials, the way it gave back the Chagos Islands with not even a blink of an eye, and of course the way that it fails day in, day out to control and police our borders. This is an elite. We know that they are pro-EU. It's a post-borders, post-nationhood establishment led by someone like Keir Starmer. They don't care about sovereignty, and that is why they're absolutely blasé about who's coming here. But ordinary Brits care very deeply about the issue of national integrity and national sovereignty.
Indeed, and given that this is a government whose approach to all problems is, if the problems are tricky, just tell a lie. Which is extremely worrying in many areas, but no more so than in terms of the economy. They're lying about the economy. You know, Rachel Reeves saying, I'm so proud to have got the economy, fixed the foundation, so we're ready to start our programme of generosity and to bestow money here, there. Well, they haven't fixed it. And then Keir Starmer tweeted, yes, we've got the economy back on track. I mean, this is just an extraordinary lie, an extraordinary lie. You know, everybody knows that Rachel from Accounts' budget last October, and indeed her spending review, has plunged this economy into a very perilous state. And she is borrowing money at an extremely dangerous rate, and she has no plans to get that money back. So lying about the economy is particularly worrying.
You know, I've come to the conclusion that calling her Rachel from Accounts is insulting to people who work in accounts departments. You know, we've all had encounters with people who work in accounts departments, and yes, they can be a bit officious and kind of box ticking, but they're usually pretty good at their jobs. They usually balance the books and they get things done. Rachel Reeves doesn't. She is useless at everything, including accounts. She can't keep an eye on, you know, she's spending more money than we're bringing in. Of course, it's completely reckless. They have no business sense at all. They're punishing small businesses and other businesses with NI impositions and so on. And, you know, but the underlying problem here as well, there's also a bigger problem. We're only on the tip of the iceberg. The problem is that this is a government that doesn't believe in economic growth. This is a government that is wedded to the religion of net zero, even if it makes occasional noises about wanting to move away from it. This is a government that thinks it's bad to have economic growth. It's destructive to the environment. It's old-fashioned. Surely we can outsource all of that manufacturing stuff to China and India and Brazil. We don't need to do it ourselves. It has no grand economic vision for improving and boosting the economy of this country or providing gainful employment for working class people. No vision at all. And what's going to come down the pipeline, of course, are huge tax rises to pay for all this stuff that they're doing.
Got to happen. Their essential approach is this, typical Labour, typical socialists, bleed the private sector dry and give all the money to the public sector. That is a recipe for economic disaster, and we're heading that way. Brendan, let's go to break now, and when we come back, I want to talk to you about the Ballymena riots, which I sad to say may be the first of many this summer. We'll talk about that next.
They're in this sort of death spiral by which they put up taxes, which reduces growth, which means that they've got to borrow more money, which means that the amount of interest they're going to pay on the borrowing goes up, which means they're going to raise taxes, and it just goes round and round and round in a circle. The economic numbers for April alone, the economy contracted by 0.3% in 1 month, and also we've seen those job numbers, you know, really tanking with, I think, unemployment amongst young people in my constituency up a sixth just since the general election alone.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm still talking to the chief political writer at Spiked, author and political commentator, of course, Brendan O'Neill. Brendan, this really feeds into what we've been discussing so far, the gaslighting and the lying of the authorities to the public. Now, over in Ballymena, we've had a fourth night of rioting. I don't know what's going on tonight, but 4 nights in a row. Yeah, awful scenes. No one would condone the violence, the hurling of petrol bombs, running battles with the police. It's particularly uncomfortable to see this kind of unrest in Northern Ireland, given the history, the turbulent history of that province. But this has been dismissed by the Northern Ireland First Minister, no relation, at least I assume not, anyway, Michelle O'Neill, as pure racism. There's no other way to dress it up. Meanwhile, the Chief Constable there, John Butcher, said that the rioters are just bigots and racists. Now, I don't know why I've got the word Southport ringing around in my head at the moment. Now, OK, it's reprehensible what those rioters are doing. But to say they're just racist, they're just bigots, it's mindless violence, there's no reason for this. There is a reason. The reason is that that town, that area, has a particularly high number of migrants, and at the beginning of this week, 2 14-year-old Romanian boys were charged and appeared in court with raping, or the oral rape of a local girl. Now, sexual crimes by migrants and asylum seekers, immigrants, the number committed by those people is disproportionate, wildly disproportionate compared to the indigenous nation, if you see what I mean. But that notwithstanding, that's why they're rioting, just like they rioted in Southport when they thought that the killer, the perpetrator of those, the awful slaughter of those poor 3 little girls, they thought it was a migrant. They're actually only slightly wrong. It was the son of a migrant. Over in Ballymena, they got the facts. There are 2 migrants who are charged with allegedly raping a local girl. So when the authorities, when the politicians and coppers say no reason for this, just as they did in Southport, remember Keir Starmer, it's far-right thugs, these are not protests, it's just mindless violence. No, there's a reason. And there's a reason in Ballymena, and I'll tell you, it's very hot today. Looks like it's going to rain in a second, but this is going to be a hot summer. And you know what happens in Britain when the summers are hot? There's going to be more of these riots, and the reason will be migrants, sometimes committing sexual crimes, and we're going to get Keir Starmer and the authorities and the police will gaslight us again and say, no, it's just far-right thugs, mindless violence. This is a problem. If these politicians can't be honest about it, we're in a bad way.
I think you're right. We're heading for a summer of discontent. You can feel it. You know, you can feel it in the air. You can feel there's a volatile atmosphere in certain communities. You can really sense it. And of course, you can see it in Ballymena on the streets for 4 nights. You know, of course, these riots are horrendous. I don't like riots. They're awful. And particularly the scenes of innocent immigrants having their houses smashed up. That is unforgivable behavior. And the people who did that should be punished. Everyone agrees with that. But it's not enough just to say that. We have to look at the underlying problems, as you say. Every time there's a riot in a modern country, we wring our hands over it, but then we look at the underlying problems. We did it with the Brixton riots of 1981. We did it with the London riots of 2011. Yes, we were all horrified by those riots, but the establishment admitted that there were underlying problems that needed to be addressed in those communities. They now need to do that here. Because what is happening, Kevin, I don't think people have got their heads around how serious this is. What we have is a situation where many post-industrial communities in Britain, often very poor communities, communities where there is not gainful employment, they are being subjected to a historically unprecedented social experiment, which is that vast numbers of migrants, some of whom don't speak the language and certainly don't share the same culture or religion, are being brought into those communities. That is creating a competition for resources. That is creating social and cultural tensions, and that is creating new forms of crime, as we've allegedly seen in Ballymena. People are at boiling point. They don't want to be treated like lab rats by an establishment that can't control its borders and then brings illegal or other asylum seekers into poor communities that are already struggling. So people are pushing back against that. At the moment, they're pushing back against it in a reckless, violent way, but there are questions that have to be answered about what's going on.
Absolutely. And as I say, the politicians, coppers, social workers, local dignitaries, they pretend that there isn't a reason for this. And by not addressing the truth, it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. As you say, the reason for this riot, in the end, these riots in Ballymena, in the end, is immigration. The reason for the riots in Southport, when it was boiled right down, was immigration. The reason for last summer of riots was immigration. Now, what worries me about Ballymena is they're already making the same noises as they made amid the Southport riots. That the way to stop these riots is to start rounding up the rioters and sending them to jail really, really quickly for about 10 years. Give them a really, really... so the message gets round, oh, blimey, if you go out rioting, they're going to get you into court within about 3 days and they'll bang you up for 5 years. Be careful with the social media as well. That could get you banged up as well. So that isn't... that isn't a solution. Now, everybody sort of praised Keir Starmer after last summer's riots and said, "Oh, didn't he do well? By banging up all the perpetrators, this iron fist that stopped the riots." Okay, it did kind of stop the riots, but it did nothing about the cause of the riots because everyone in authority pretended that the real reason for the riots didn't exist. So banging people up for long prison terms might stop the riots for a while, but they will re-erupt.
Absolutely right. The state can lock people up swiftly and firmly as much as it likes, but it won't address the problem. It's not a solution. And in fact, it could make things worse. And, the truth of the matter is this. You can say two things about these riots in Ballymena and the Southport riots and other disturbances we've seen in the UK in recent years over immigration. You can say two things. Firstly, it's very, very reckless, dangerous, bad behavior, and some of the people will have to be punished, number one. And number two, this is the fury of the dispossessed. This is the fury of the cancelled. People are angry about immigration and they're angry that they have no legitimate outlet for expressing their concerns. And every time they do express their concerns on marches or by joining certain organizations, they're called far-right scum, they're called fascists, they're called Nazis. They're seen as people who should not be listened to. They're the dregs of the earth, shut them down. They have no outlet open to them to express democratically their concerns about immigration, and therefore some take this extreme and unacceptable behavior that we've seen in Ballymena. There's a reason that immigration is the issue through which people most keenly feel their dislocation from society. They really do. It's this issue that really riles people up because they feel that it's being imposed on them, which it is. They feel it's an issue they're forbidden from talking about, which they are. And they feel that it's creating social and cultural and economic tensions in their communities, which it absolutely is. So this is going to become a flashpoint issue, and the solution is not to come down hard on people, it's to allow people to freely speak about the problems.
Yeah, this cultural dilution, which is going on a massive scale right now, is a powder keg. I don't want to be a harbinger of doom or a scaremonger, but I think we are in for a troublesome summer, to say the least. I can't let you go, Brendan, without getting a few comments from you on our friend, the Doom Goblin, Greta Thunberg. You wrote a great piece in The Spectator. I had Jake Wallace-Simons on the other night, and I was trying to sort of make it a bit of a joke of her freedom flotilla and everything. And, there was a funny side to it. The funniest thing about the freedom flotilla, as it headed for Gaza, it had this sort of performative, symbolic cargo of aid for the poor people of Palestine. The funniest thing about it, these 12 kids, or these 12 overgrown kids, these selfie fiends on the selfie yacht, they ate most of it, apparently. So there wasn't really much left by the time the Israeli Navy went out and got them. Let's talk about, this is what you wrote about. I mean, old Greta Thunberg, you can laugh about her. She's a farcical, ludicrous figure. She really should have gone to school a little bit longer, and perhaps she wouldn't be quite so stupid. But the problem with Greta is that there are millions of impressionable people, particularly young people around the world, who take her seriously. So you can't just dismiss her as a joke. But let's talk about her behaviour. So the Israeli Navy saved her life and her friends, her 11 friends, 12 of them, took them into a nice safe port, said to all of them, right, look, if you sign these deportation papers, we'll fly you home, and don't do it again. Very nice. They also said, could you watch this 43-minute film of exactly what happened on October the 7th? We're told that Greta and quite a few of the rest of them refused to do that, and I find that disgusting that she, if that's true. She also used that term, "we're being kidnapped."
Yeah.
Now, when you think of the kidnapped hostages in Gaza, that too was a disgusting thing to say. By the way, in terms of the signing of those deportation papers, 8 of these idiots on the Freedom Flotilla refused to sign them. Now, they're fools, but they're courageous fools, because the Israelis said, you sign these, we'll fly you home. If you don't sign them, we're going to have to put you in prison and we'll put you on trial. So 8 of them, I say this sort of loosely, to their credit, bravely said, right, we're going to stand on our principles. Guess who immediately signed them? It was Greta, who turns out not only to be a fool, but also a coward. But the problem with this idiot is that too many people take her seriously. And by the way, let's remember why she's turned to Palestine as her cause of the year. It's because she's so racked by disappointment that her prediction that humanity would be destroyed by 2023 due to climate change just didn't come off. What a disappointment that was. But she's a problem, isn't she?
Oh, she absolutely is a problem. You know, we all like a bit of Greta mick-taking. I do it myself. She's a ridiculous figure. That selfie yacht was pathetic. It was a bunch of self-regarding idiots from Europe thinking they could save Gaza. It was sanctimony on the high seas. It was ocean go and virtue signaling. It was ridiculous. But you're right, there's a serious element to this, and the serious element is their alleged refusal to watch the footage of Hamas's atrocities. To turn your back on that amount of Jewish suffering is unforgivable. It's obscene, in fact. And Greta described herself as a kidnap victim, and yet she refused to watch a genuine kidnapping of Shiri Bibas and her 2 babies, who were savagely stolen from their home on the 7th of October and then butchered in Gaza by Hamas. To turn, we used to ask ourselves, how could people in Europe in the 1930s turn away from the mass murder of Jews? Well, look at this. Right now, in 2025, Greta Thunberg and her friends allegedly turned away and refused to watch the mass murder of Jews. So that kind of apologism, that kind of unwillingness to look fascism in the eye, it's happening right now, and it's summed up in these ridiculous people who sailed to Gaza.
And we're just watching now. I wonder what you think of this. I'll let you go in just a second. But as we've been talking throughout the show tonight, it's really erupting in the Middle East. We know about this incredible raid by the Israelis last night. Well, Iran is responding. We're looking at pictures of Tel Aviv. We were due to interview Colonel Richard Kemp, who's in Tel Aviv. We think he's been moved to a bomb shelter. We're seeing buildings being struck. Apparently, quite a few civilians have been hurt. So it's beginning to kick off there. What are your thoughts on this?
I think what Israel did to Iran was extraordinary. This is one of the most laser-focused strikes in the whole history of warfare. You know, the number of top dogs in the Islamic Republic that they took out with such extraordinary precision is unprecedented. We already have the crazy leftists in the West calling this a war of aggression by Israel and saying Israel is a rogue state, a genocidal state, attacking poor Iran. No. This war started when Iran's proxies of Hamas carried out the worst mass murder of Jews since the Holocaust. It started when Iran's proxies of Hezbollah bombed northern Israel every single day, causing 60,000 people to flee their homes. This war was started by Iran, and Israel has every right to fight back against Iran. I think all decent-minded people who care about civilizational values should be supporting Israel in its war against the tyrants of the Islamic Republic.
Which, last question, of course, Keir Starmer and Britain aren't.
No. Keir Starmer is saying, take a step back, turn down the tensions, don't let it get out of hand. What a moral coward. That is spinelessness dressed up as pacifism. You can imagine him saying that to America after Pearl Harbor, or to the Free French Army after the Nazis conquered France. You can imagine him saying, turn down the tensions, don't do anything too risky. He's a moral coward, I'm afraid to say.
Well, on that bombshell, Brendan, thank you so much for an excellent, what is it now, 35 minutes. Brendan O'Neill there, chief political writer at Spiked Online. I've recommended stuff, and he's always a fantastic guest. Let me know what you think of some of the things we were discussing there. You know, the gaslighting of the public. Ballymena, it's not a mindless, violent... It's violence. It's not mindless. There's a reason. And if we're not careful, there's going to be more riots like this. Immigration has become a tinderbox. We are sitting on a powder keg. Too many communities have got too many migrants, too many foreigners imposed on them. And when these foreigners, these migrants, these immigrants commit the kind of crimes that appall us, they're often sexual, it goes off, it kicks off. So that's what's happening in Ballymena. I hope to hell it doesn't happen in other places through the summer, but I have a horrible suspicion that it might. Let's go to break. When we come back, we're going to take some of your calls and keep you posted about what is happening in Israel right now. It is under attack from Iran, so stick around, folks.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Right, I stuck with old Brendan O'Neill for too long, but then again, he's such a great talker. It's so good to talk to him so you understand, and he was making some fantastic points. When we finished off on Israel, where I'm looking at pictures of Tel Aviv, and it is under serious assault. It looks as you can't quite work out what, you're seeing all these flashes in the sky. I'm assuming that often it's this Iron Dome thing stopping the bombs getting through, or the drones, or whatever the hell it is. But you can see that some of them are going off because you can see big explosions on the ground. So it ain't good there, folks. Now, in 20 minutes' time, it is my TV show, What Just Happened. I highly recommend it. It's fantastic. This week, my special guests are Samara Gill, my producer, who I'm looking at right now, and also the great Kinsey Schofield, our American royal guru, who's over for the week, and so she graced us with her presence as well. Let's have a look. And for refusing to watch that film, and for being a coward, not, by signing those deportation papers, Greta, you little doom goblin, go straight to hell.
I think that there's nothing Hamas loves more than Daisy Dukes, short shorts. Yeah. And that's so what she was rolling up in. Yeah. I mean, can you imagine if she would have tried to prance around in those?
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, Hamas's friend, right?
Well, that's the thing. The collaboration of jihad and left-wing activism is something that I never foresaw until about 2024. Yeah. And it's really interesting to see someone who wouldn't survive a day in Gaza sort of blindly heading there on a yacht. I mean, it's the reason that it's enraged so many people on the internet is because it really does come to why people are annoyed with this tone-deaf activism.
Greta and her friends, these kind of people, it's rent-a-calls. Oh, no, the planet didn't end. Everybody didn't die in 2023 like I said they would. Right, what else? Oh, Palestine, yeah, I'll have a bit of that. Yeah. It's pathetic. As the Israelis said, that was the selfie yacht. It's all about Greta. Well, there's Greta Thunberg again. She keeps cropping up, doesn't she? Anyway, that's in 20 minutes, what just happened. So you can watch it, obviously, here on Talk. And then it goes out on YouTube tomorrow morning, around about 9:30. Watch out for it. And you can watch it anytime you like, forevermore. So hope you enjoy it. Right, let's go to the phones, shall we? Let's, what we got here? Let's talk to... Caroline in London. Hi, Karen. Caroline, I'm sorry. Yeah, you want to talk about Darren Jones, the liar?
Yes, and the riots in Ireland, if I may. So Darren Jones,
of course, yeah.
I'm as, if not more, angry than you are. What I don't know what we can do with our anger. They're not held accountable, and it is absolutely appalling that he's allowed to gaslight, and we all know that. And he gets the airtime, and we're powerless, Kevin. You're powerless. We're all powerless. They're just doing what they want.
I know.
They've sold the country. Literally, they've sold it. It's sold. It's not happening. It's happened.
But also, Caroline, we seem to have entered an era, maybe it started with this Labour government, where politicians just stare us in the face and to get out of tricky situations, like, for example, the escalating migrant crisis, they just lie. They absolutely demonstrably lie. Now, this has never really happened before. And as Brendan O'Neill just said to me, this is Orwellian. You know, this is 1984. It's actually happening now, where politicians stare us in the face and demand that we believe that which we know not to be true. It's really worrying.
Absolutely, and that brings me on to the lack of free speech. So they're scaring people. Thank God for you guys, really. But apart from talk, people aren't going on their social media. They're scared to talk. This has never happened ever in our history. And they're not going to look at the reasons. I personally believe they're bringing these men over for a reason. There's no way that they can let millions over and not stop it.
I think they just don't really care. I don't think they have any particular... I don't think that a lot of people say, oh, Starmer wants to let in millions of migrants so he can give them citizenship and then they'll vote for Labour. Well, you know, it's just too long-term. I don't think it's that. I think it's just that Starmer doesn't particularly... He's a globalist, so is his government. They don't really care about borders and they believe that you should just let everybody in and we can have the united colours of Benetton and it'll be a wonderful, harmonious, beautiful country. Well, I think we're finding out that that isn't really the case, is it, to say the least?
But, Kevin, you know what worries me? I think that this is going to get bigger, these riots, into the UK.
I agree with you, Caroline.
And I think they want that. And I think they're going to use that as a way to lock us down.
Well, if they, you know, I don't think people will agree to be locked down again. But I think, you know, I wouldn't put anything past them. Listen, just because I haven't got that much time, Caroline, you said you wanted to talk about the Ballymena riots. What would you like to say?
No, but that's what I was going to say. That you know, everything Brendan said is absolutely spot on. They're not going to look at the reasons. They're going to continue gaslighting.
Well, they're going to deliberately avoid the reasons, deliberately refuse to discuss the reasons, as if there was nothing to see here. Do you remember Keir Starmer in the Southport riots, where everybody said two-tier policing, where he got his famous nickname, two-tier Keir, and he was asked, as the riots were going on, what about two-tier policing? He goes, it's not an issue, and just walked off.
But there was one other thing. There was an MP, a Tory MP, Nick somebody, who's trying to...
Do you mean Nick Timothy? Nick Timothy.
Yes, about the blasphemy law. I mean, that's another thing.
Well, yeah, that is very worrying.
I could be on the phone to you all night. I mean, where do we stop?
Yeah, but the blasphemy law thing, again, a lot of this can be traced back to Labour's craven desire, obsession with not offending the Muslim community because it wants the Muslim vote. There are 4 million Muslims in this country, I do believe. Not all of them can vote, of course, because they're not all old enough. But there's millions of votes and Labour will do anything not to offend that community. But I think we're in big trouble, Caroline, but I've got to move on. But really good call. Please call me again. That's Caroline in London making some great points. This is a WhatsApp voice note. This is Debbie on Question Time and liar Darren Jones.
Hi Kevin, Debbie here from Cornwall. Just responding to the whole Darren thing on Question Time. Is he having a laugh? Seriously, do they think we're stupid? Do they not realise? I mean, even the BBC, the boats coming in are full of men with didgeridoos. Come on. It's just insulting our intelligence now. For goodness sake, Labour, shut the up.
I'm glad you didn't use the word that you would have put into that little gap there, but absolutely, they think we're stupid. Brendan O'Neill was saying that, and he's right. Darren Jones thinks we're stupid. He thinks he can tell this barefaced lie on national television, and we'll just go, oh, he's a cabinet minister, that must be true. No, we're not stupid. As I told Darren on Twitter, you're the stupid one. You know, take a tip, Darren, as I told you on Twitter. Don't lie on national television again. You'll get found out. We're not stupid. You were stupid to do that. Don't do it again, OK? Let's go to break, come back, we'll listen to some more of your WhatsApp voice notes. We'll play we'll read some of your messages and take some of your calls, so stay tuned.
I don't know what I want from the government. I want from the government maybe to... I don't know exactly what I want. Everybody, like you said, want the hostages to come back. We want to live in peace, but it's very difficult. It's very, very complicated. We understand. I understood. I'm a very peaceful person. I want peace. I believed that we can live in peace with our neighbors. We gave them so much.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Got a quick text here from John Coyne. Wow, Brendan is the GOAT. He means the greatest of all time. He is one of the greatest of all time guests. He really is. Really concise and brilliant analysis of exactly what's going wrong. And he's right. You know, this migrant crisis, the number of migrants now saturating this country. Never mind the 50, 60,000 who are going to come across the channel this year. What about the million or so legal migrants we let in every year? Okay, 400, 500,000 may leave, but we're 500,000, 600,000 legal migrants come in every year. This country is culturally being diluted. And people are beginning to not recognise the nation they grew up in. Yeah, this is not a recipe for harmony. This is a recipe for major trouble. It really, really is. Here's a WhatsApp voice note. This is Claire on the grooming gangs.
Eat, sleep, lie, repeat. It sums up this government to a T, don't you think? They're all an absolute bunch of incompetent numpties. Don't even get me started on these rape gangs. I'm glad 2 more of those monsters have been convicted today. But shame on the police and the other authorities that let those poor 2 girls down all those years ago, admitting that they knew something but did nothing. The years of torment those girls must have had to go through. And all the police can turn around and say is, we're sorry. What an absolute disgrace. It boils my pea, Kev, from Claire and Lee in Buckley.
Hi Claire and Lee. Claire, I think expressing the fury that many people are feeling. It wasn't 2 rape gangsters, by the way, it was 7. And they committed their crimes between 2001 and 2006. So it's nearly 20 years. Why did it take that long? Unbelievable. So I assume we can expect more cases, more convictions, but meanwhile, the rape gangs are still operating. Trust me. Everybody knows that all over the country. Something needs to be done, and something needs to be done fast. Let's go back to the phones. Let's talk to Andy in Liverpool. Hi, Andy.
I am. Sorry.
That's all right.
Yeah. No, the fact of the matter is, we're all supposed to be under the same ECHR rules, okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, we are putting these people up in, God knows, 4-star hotels, yet the French are allowed to put them up in tents.
Yeah, if they're lucky. I mean, most of them don't even get tents. They're left to fend for themselves.
Yeah. So why have we got to put them up in hotels?
Because we're idiots.
Those houses for them?
Because we're idiots. We also allow something like, we used to allow 75% of asylum claimants to stay. It's now down to about 48%. You know, the Germans, I think it's like 13%. The French, it's just under 30%. We allow more asylum seekers to stay than any other country on the face of the planet.
Exactly.
And as you say, we also treat them with extraordinary generosity. Here's a 4-star hotel. Here's 50 quid a week. They all get 50 quid a week. Here's free doctors, free dentists, free lawyers to fight your case to stay. It's a joke. It's a joke.
What is the matter with this government?
Yeah, because, well, it's not just this government. The Tories caused this crisis. It's something to do with the people who run this country, who, successive generations of idiots. Absolutely.
I agree with you. Thank you.
All right, mate. It's good to talk, Andy. Sally, WhatsApp voice note on Question Time.
Hi, Kevin. Love your programme. Yes, I was watching Question Time last night, and I could not believe the words he spoke. My jaw dropped. I thought, we're getting lied to all the time, but this one just took the biscuit. Sally, Lincolnshire.
Well, Sally in Lincolnshire, I couldn't agree more. I too was watching. I went, did he just say that? Did he just... I couldn't believe it, so I tweeted it. I think it's had something like 100,000 views and been retweeted about 2,000 times. It immediately struck a chord. Other people have been tweeting about it. Defund the BBC tweeted about it. The BBC's just as complicit in this lie as everyone else, as Darren Jones. They edited out his lie that the majority of migrants are children, babies and women. They edited that out and then just let him, they just posted him pulling the heartstrings. These poor people, they come with burns and da. Well, don't get in the damn boats then. You know, they're not escaping war and torture, are they? And as we all know, most of them, the vast majority of the cross-channel migrants who come into this country, who break into this country illegally, are young men of working military age, between the ages of 16 and 34. A few years back it was 84%. We're now being told it's 95%. But for Darren Jones to say, oh, well, you have said 90%, that's not true. Could be, easily. What the point Zia was making was, how dare you say the majority are children, babies and women, because that's a lie. In fact, the percentage of young men coming across the channel illegally is inordinately high. It's nearly all men, young men. So there you are. Thank you for the lie, Darren Jones, Chief Secretary to the Treasury. Unbelievable. Let's quickly talk to Gordon in Sutton. Is that Sutton, Surrey, yeah?
It is my favourite Sutton journalist.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you've spoken before. I used to be the chief reporter of the Sutton Herald. So
thank you for taking my call.
Yeah, no problem, Gordon. What would you like to say?
Well, I conflate two things that I've been watching today. I've been watching all day. So, in Rochdale, a court case finished after 24 years, where the authorities basically called the girls, all of them underage, prostitutes and troublemakers.
Well, that was the backdrop to the to the grooming gang scandal, that the authorities essentially said, well, it doesn't really matter about these girls who are getting abused because they're sort of low lifes from sink estates, and they're kind of the sort of girls who put it around, prostitutes. First of all, that wasn't true, and it isn't true.
Well,
and secondly, even if it was, it doesn't give Muslim men of Pakistani origin the right to treat these girls like animals, which is what they did.
You're absolutely right. The conflation I want to make is the way, if I jump to Ballymena with the chief constable, the first words out of his mouth, they're all racist.
Yeah, racist. And Michelle O'Neill, the First Minister of Northern Ireland, said the same. She said, this is racism, pure and simple. There's no other way to dress it up. Yes, there is, Michelle. You could dress it up with the truth. This isn't just racism. It may not be racism at all. It is a reaction to the fact that two Romanian migrant kids, 14-year-olds, were in court charged with the alleged oral rape of a local girl, and the local community are understandably furious. It isn't just racism. Arguably, it's not racism at all. It's blind fury over what's happening.
You're absolutely right, Captain. The problem that I'm bringing to light there, they're using the same playbook of a quarter of a century to denigrate the decent, hard-working people of this country.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I mean, like Keir Starmer calling everyone who rioted, everyone. Now, look, those riots last summer, most of the protesters were actually peaceful, but Keir Starmer said they're all far-right thugs. He said these are not protests. They were protests. They were protests about the migrant crisis.
Yeah, but you don't want to hear it, and they keep doing it. Mm-hmm. And I'm sorry to say this, I don't want to be proven right, but I think it's going to kick off.
Well, no, look, I've been saying that all evening, and I'm like you, Gordon. I really don't want to be a harbinger of doom. I don't want to be a scaremonger. But hot summers in Britain, right back to the Brixton riots. I was there, by the way. Not participating, I hasten to add. Always hot summers, riots. Only this summer, the fury